Hey, Sarah, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing? Such a pleasure to be able to have this chat with you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So maybe you can just kick off with a brief introduction to this really, really unique film. And also it's got a fascinating story behind it. Kind of it all happened in a bit of a whirlwind. So maybe you can just give us a glimpse of how it all came together.
Ooh. Well, you know what? Devil to Pay is a story about a mother who is trying um, to take care of her son and to survive in the Appalachian Mountains in this sovereign space. A family, a ruling family, kind of tests their strength and their will, and Lemon has to discover new qualities of herself in order to survive and in order to reclaim, the liberty of her son. And so this movie came about, I was saying how I met Lane and Ruckus, our writer directors, at a coffee shop in Atlanta. And we just sat and talked about movies. We talked about stuff we liked, genres we dug, things we liked, things we didn't like, et cetera, stuff we wanted to do. And a year later, they came to me and said, no, let's go have tea now. And we had tea and we talked about Devil to Pay, what would become Devil to Pay. And they said, you want to do it? And I was like, I got the time, let's get it. And so we went up into the mountains of North Georgia for 4 weeks. We lived in a home together and with all of our crew, and we dug deep into this indie movie and made what you see. Additionally, my son plays Coy, my real birthed son. It's his first film. And it was a really beautiful, weird, strange experience to do something with him because, most of my artistic life has been pretty, personal and autonomous from my family dynamic in this way. And so to watch him fluidly become a character and play with me in front of a red that he had never done before around all of these people was just something to marvel at. And I was really inspired because that's something that I didn't necessarily, a kind of energy I didn't possess as a child. And so to see him come full circle and to embody this role and to take on the experience of being an artist in that way was really, really cool. And we made it in 2017 and it came forth in 2020 and now it's being shared with the UK. So we're ready to get busy.
And, it's quite a non-conventional way for a film to come about, kind of basically, starting from the writer directors meeting you and kind of building the role and the story around you. So, what was that like? And I know you do filmmaking, in your own right. So perhaps you're used to that more kind of collaborative and that side of the creative process. But was that quite a nice experience for you, kind of doing it in that direction rather than something all being ready to go and then stepping into as an actor?
Yeah, it was different. Nobody's like necessarily like, hey, I got stuff for you. You know what I mean? My sister's a writer, and so I've done like more theater oriented things with her and whatnot. But to take on a larger role, to take on the lead role, and to have some producerial capacity, it and to not have to audition, right? Like I don't know, like it's a let us know who we are. Let us begin to sit down to know who each other are is a different manner than what I had necessarily been experiencing. And the indie world just allows you to navigate in a much more a looser manner. And I mean, it was beautiful to say the least, and yet there's still a charge because of the intensity of the role, because of what Lemon is navigating. It was cool to do. And I mean, it's just like it was a confirmation that, you can navigate with multitudes under your belt, right? It's a fear, or at least a challenge to be a producer, to be an actor, to be a director, to be a writer. It's like everybody has to do these hats, right? To have all this stuff underneath your head. It's cool to figure out, I can hold multitudes in a new kind of way. And so at that time, I'm learning to navigate that space and to still do rigorous artistic work in that role too.
What I think is really appealing about the film is, you know, it's an original story. It's not a remake. It's not a rehash. It's, you know, which, you know, for better or worse, seems to be, you know, what a lot of the films we're seeing at the moment. So, and why do you think it landed on this kind of, you know, in this really interesting setting of the Acapulco Mountains? And there's a really interesting tone to it as well, where it's, you know, of course, you know, this woman's out for, you know, protecting her family, but there's also kind of, you know, a bit of cheekiness sometimes in the script, and, you know, Steph's definitely where she's sort of going head to head with that other kind of mother figure, who's of course
Yeah.
not like a homely figure whatsoever.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of characterize the tone of it, and, you know, why this particular story?
You know what? Lane and Ruckus are weird. That's it. They some strange ass people. And they know, oh, Danielle, she's got some strange shit too. I think they said, yeah, let's play. And I specifically said like I was interested in thrillers to them or something when we first had that initial meeting. But I always go for the weird, right? I always go for somebody in a unique environment. And I initially said to them, Black people live in Appalachia, and they do, you know, in multitudes. And so I found that being a necessary thing to share, to talk about people who are on the margins of society in a certain way, to make them the center, which is always something that I'm interested in. Women, people, beings taking charge or learning to take charge of their lives in this way. Lane and Ruckus are funny. They're a husband and wife duo who I think it's really cool to see the feminine and the masculine navigate together, every aspect, from the visual to the written, right? Like they do it all together. And that was my first time working with a duo in that capacity. And I love them for it. You know, it enabled us to draw on the levity because it is so intense. You have to have those interspersing like qualities in there. And I just think they just dig intensity and they dig peculiarity and finding that in people and making that something that is common, or to find the commonalities with those kind of characters. So they're interested in the strange, the occult, the you know, that one part with the occult in the movie. That's something that, you know, with the thingy, you know. I don't want to get like, I don't know if I'm doing spoilers for people, but that's the type of stuff that they find and they dig into and they want to share, and in a rich story.
And what about the shooting of it? I mean, it looks like you obviously spent a lot of time actually in those mountains, you know, so you must have been exposed to all sorts of weather. You know, what were some of the highlights and challenges of shooting it?
You know what? I've been to the North Georgia mountains before plenty of times, but never staying 4 weeks. And we stayed together, the crew and everybody, for that hardcore time. The challenge is like the constant, you know, moving through these hills, through these mountains. I remember it being a challenge, like, and we had to switch my boots out because they were steel toe boots initially, because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go for the hardcore, and realizing, no, them shits is heavy, okay, and you don't want to be trudging through doing multiple takes with heavy boots. The weather wasn't that bad, you know. It was fall, so it had a crispness to the air, and I needed to maintain some heat. I am a little person, but it wasn't terrible. It's just there were coyotes and other dark figures in the nighttime, and there are no street lights like that. It's very different than being in the city, and so you want to mind your business and go be in the place. You know what I mean? That's the kind of you know, light danger that would be present, but it's glorious. I remember reading Georgia has the capacity to like this responsibility with regard to trees. And so every time a tree is taken down, they always make sure like 2 trees are replanted or something like that. And so that's just the beauty of the North Georgia mountains. But to be looking at this gloriousness and to be thinking about how challenging Lemon's life is, I think we're always navigating the beauty and the gruesome at the same time. So that was the experience. Yeah.
And what do you hope people will take away from watching it? Because I guess on the one hand, it's kind of, the entertaining kind of thriller aspect. But then we've also got this kind of like amazing female character who just basically, and there's a lot about motherhood in there, how she kind of kicks into this survival mode and she's able to
Yeah.
do things that it's almost like she wasn't aware of herself. And there's something incredibly empowering about watching that transformation happen.
Yeah, yeah. It's difficult to have to learn about what you possess, the true capacity of yourself through trauma. It would be beautiful to learn that in a place of ease, but challenge is necessary. I don't think it always has to be trauma, but I do think that that is a true takeaway, that we possess multitudes and we are capable of so much more than we think we can. And we see that in the rigor of Lemon's experience. And it's just imperative that you continuously buck systems and people that try to oppress you, and it'll be a marvel upon what you stumble on.
And I also wanted to mention, of course, your incredible turn in The Harder They Fall. And I wondered, I guess you were doing this film before that one, whether you were channeling in either direction, because that's obviously also very physical, badass woman in that film. So, what was the experience of making that film? And do you see that we're seeing a bit of a shift now, and that there are all these exciting films and roles out there for women of color, or do you think that we've still got a way to go and that representation is still only at the tip of the iceberg in a way?
It's very tip. It's still very tip. I mean, we're talking about stories that have been erased and muted and hidden or eviscerated, for that matter, like stuff that just like you can't, Black people can't always access the information regarding their lineage because it wasn't maintained or it was destroyed or all these kinds of things. It's confusing to source through. I think that it is small what we are tapping into, but I think that there will be a proliferation. I didn't orchestrate this myself, right? Like I did Devil to Pay in 2017. It came out in late 2020. And then, I had actually been researching Cathay Williams for another performance art endeavor. And Harder They Fall just happened upon me and of course we shot during the pandemic, like one of the first movies hardcore to come back and to make its way through. And super lucky to be a part of it. I think people are going to start mining and wanting more of these stories. I think people already are mining these stories. The question is, are they being given the resources in order to make that happen? And I think they can come in all kinds of ways. I think they'll come in the form of film, in TV, in theater, in experimentalism. I think they'll come in visual art. I think that it is out there. It is already all out there, and there is more to be mined. It's about amplifying these stories, giving them the pedestals that they deserve. And I think we should be looking out for them, intentionally searching for them.
And can you quickly tell us what you might be working on next, both in your kind of like, I guess more like mainstream Hollywood stuff, but then also in your own projects as well?
Oh, I don't know. I'm taking time. This is pandemic has really, made me it's forced us all to take a step back, but I am intentionally taking a step back and recuperating and learning and watching and observing and listening. But I do have work that'll come out later this year. And when it's ready, I'll let you know.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thanks so much for your time and congratulations on this brilliant film.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Truly appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Danielle. Lovely to speak to you. Thank you.
My pleasure.